This week on the podcast, it's all about Carrie's first trip back to Walt Disney World since the pandemic started. We're talking about how comfortable she felt traveling and what it was like to be back in the parks, and our experience with Beeper MD getting her COVID test to come home. Stay tuned to hear how it all went. You're listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. Hi, I'm Francine.
And I'm Carrie.
We're two best friends who can't stop talking, usually about Disney stuff.
Sometimes we have fascinating guests, and sometimes it's just us, but it's always positive and fun.
We're happy to have you join our chat. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Hi, Carrie.
Hiya.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Are you? Have you come down yet? Out of the clouds from the Muppet fandom of last week?
It was awesome. Oh my goodness. Wednesday was a pretty cool day. Like, being so excited about that podcast being released and the opportunity we had. But the next day we had an all staff meeting at work, and it was a pretty short meeting. We didn't have a big agenda, so it only lasted like half an hour. And my boss said, "Does anybody have any good news stories to share?"
You didn't.
And so I unmuted, and I'm like, "Well, actually, I do have a story to tell." So I told almost 60 of us. Almost 60 of us. I told the story about how we were reached out by, like, Kelly reached out to us and about our podcast episode and how we invited him on and he said yes, and then we recorded, and then yesterday, like, because that was Thursday, yesterday the podcast went live, and how excited I was and how excited we were and how cool it was, and everybody was so excited. They were all like sending congratulations and saying, you know, like, people were messaging in our little chat saying, "Uh-oh, you know, my boss, he better watch out because Carrie's a star now, or Carrie might, you know, change careers or whatever." They were doing that. And then I had some people texting me. Some of my colleagues texted me, and I had some reach out to say they listened and that it was so cool. So yeah, I took it, I milked it for all it was worth. I told everybody that would listen, my aunts, my mom, everybody that I knew, my cats listened. They might not have understood it. I told everybody, I think. So, yeah. Still kind of excited, not gonna lie.
It's a pretty big deal when you think about Carrie. He's like, he worked with the real, like, the Muppets.
Exactly. The famous peoples can be aside. He worked with the famous Muppets. Anyways,
it was awesome. It was awesome. And we had like, our downloads that day were like off the charts. Our little podcast that could seems to be getting a little more airplay somewhere, and we're exponentially growing week over week. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the power of the Muppets. Like, you know.
This is all about
Maybe
the Muppets.
The Muppet fans have finally found us. And they're like, "That girl is crazy.
Yeah,
she doesn't know." I don't know what she's talking about most of the time, but she likes the Muppets. So
Muppet crazy is really crazy.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get that episode in before Halloween. And of course we did, truth be told, we didn't want to waste any time in case he changed his mind and said, no, he didn't want to go.
Too late. Too late. You snooze, you lose.
So we were like all over it. But we did a trip. A big trip.
Yes, we did.
And we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about and review for it. And it's probably going to be over the next couple of episodes because there's just so much to cover. But we wanted to start with this episode talking about, because we get so many questions about this kind of stuff, was I went in August and we talked and explored how I felt about it, the travel, blah, blah, blah. But this was your first trip back.
Yes.
To the magic and to Walt Disney World, since like, for somebody that used to travel all the time,
yep.
This was your first trip in COVID, and you've been really open about how you were struggling in the beginning with the COVID and the anxiety and all of that stuff. So people are anxious to hear how you felt about the travel. Like, how did this go for you? Now, I know because I was with you.
Haven't we already talked about this already?
We talked about how I felt, but how you did with this.
No, I memt me and you. You and I talked about this already.
Yeah, you and I have covered this privately, but I'm, a lot of people are really interested to hear how the trip was for you. Like, the very beginning, how you felt going through, because wasn't that your first COVID test?
Yeah, I have managed not to have a COVID test.
All this time. So yeah, I had to have my first COVID test. That's the thing. I think you don't, like, I didn't feel comfortable, like, I didn't really realize I was traveling. Like, I knew I was going on a trip and I was planning for it the best I could. But, like, until I had that negative COVID test, like, to go down, I didn't feel like I was really going. Like, Everyone's like, you know, you haven't left the house in 2 weeks, you know, or whatever, you're not going to have COVID, you're going to pass the test, don't worry. But still, like, when you're anxious about this stuff and you just never know, you know, I didn't feel very, you know, overly excited until I had that test. That
I did it on, when did we fly? We flew on a Thursday, so I did it on the Tuesday, and then I went home and I started to pack. Like, I hadn't even, and I overpacked pretty much because there's two things. I had the pressure of checking a bag because everyone's like, you haven't traveled for so long, you better check a bag. So I'm like, okay, I'll check a bag.
No, but it's not just because you haven't traveled so long. It's because we were expecting purchases.
Right. And I was fine, and I was completely fine with that I should check a bag because I was going to buy stuff, and I did buy lots of stuff. Like, that's whatever. That's all good. But also because I wasn't doing my usual planning. Like, usually I plan like a couple weeks out in advance. I got my outfits all figured out. I've got them all written down, all my possibilities, so that I can just bring what I need. And because I didn't really want to even kind of face that until I knew for sure I was going, then I started doing it. And then I packed I had multiple outfits I didn't even wear, and we were doing laundry, so I washed the stuff I really liked wearing, and I wore it again or whatever. So I packed a little bit too much. So like, after that, my planning and my packing experience wasn't even very, it wasn't even fun.
Normal.
Like, I didn't enjoy it because I was very stressed out about the fact, like, I've saved this to the last minute. I don't know what to do. And then part of me was trying to be silly. Like, I packed silly stuff to kind of just get you whirled up. Like, I packed 2 puzzles so that I could do puzzles.
Like,
in the room.
we showed up. She unpacks her case and she brings out 2 puzzles.
Which I figured I could just leave there for the housekeeping to keep and play with. But so part of me was like, oh, they're peer pressuring me into checking a bag. I want to bring some silly stuff. I brought slippers. I don't even know if I wore my slippers. I brought all kinds of stuff because I thought, oh, this will be funny that I brought all this extra stuff. So yeah, I didn't, up to going, I wasn't, very excited. Like, I had a little glimpse where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to Walt Disney World. But like, the pressure of like, am I really going to go? Is it all going to work out? How is it going to be? Like, worried about, all the stuff we had to do. I couldn't be as excited as I usually would be. And then when I was clear, then I was like, man, why didn't I pack last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago like I usually do? And I was stressed. I packed like all kinds of stuff, like thinking I might need it, and I never used it. Like, yeah, I was definitely more in your lane of packing this time. I brought like 3 pairs of shoes. Like, why?
I know, and I only brought 2.
Like, I was just not myself when it came to the packing, but
you know what? That's a key thing to remind people. Like, even for people who we travel all the time before this first trip back feels like it's almost like you don't know what to do because you're waiting on that COVID test before you really feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, until you feel free.
So your preparation was all out of whack.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely out of whack. Like, I would be able to go on a 2-week vacation with a carry-on, or at least a 10-day vacation for sure. I would often go away for 9 or 10 days and have a carry-on. And here's me like stressing out, overpacking in a full-size suitcase. Well, my suitcase isn't as big as your guys. You guys have huge suitcases.
Yeah, yours is
I have
really
like a normal
size,
old school size suitcase, not the jumbo ones that people buy now. But I was stressing, and I had ample room, and yeah, whatever. It all worked out because we fit everything back in on the way home in all of our suitcases.
We had to rearrange some stuff for the way home, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole other. We don't want to spill the beans on all the stuff we bought.
All the purchases.
Yeah.
So that was your packing experience.
Packing, and then at the airport, like, after it's all, like, the same with the testing on the way home, right? Like, I didn't really think about it too much when we were there until we got closer to the actual
testing
like the day
period.
before, and then I started to feel a little bit more anxious, like, you know, that, oh my goodness, we got to do this tomorrow. Like, I didn't really think I was going to be COVID positive and not be able to go home, but like, you just can't, your body and your mind can't stop it, right? Like,
right.
You know, I've been anxious about this forever. Like, it's not just going to go away because I'm in the bubble. So, like, other than that, like, the whole other experience of traveling, it just felt like it used to. Like, and
so
I've told
normal.
that to people since I've gotten back, like a few people I've talked to from work or whatever. Like, you know, besides the worrying about doing this testing, the red tape and the testing, like the actual travel procedures feels exactly the same. Like I've said to people, when you're at the airport, it's not even like the customs people or the person at the desk that's really checking these things. Like there's a nice staff member in line that like looks at your things and puts a sticker on your passport, and then that sticker tells everybody else that looks at you that you're okay. So it's not like, the process is pretty harmless and fairly seamless, and beyond like having someone check it in one, like going down and then someone checked it the same way coming back. Like everything else is exactly the same. You wait, you check your bags, you get your bag tags, you wait in line, you drop your bags, you go through security and customs, and you go to your gate. Like on the way down, we were probably from drop off to gate in like 30 minutes because it was
insanely quick, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess we should reiterate for people listening. So Carrie and I are both in Canada. So it is a requirement for us to travel that we have COVID testing before we go and to return to Canada.
Yeah,
so
and we have to go through customs we have to go through U.S. customs at our airport prior to getting on the plane. And then when we come home, we go through Canada customs.
Right. So on the way there,
those are the big lineups, the customs lines.
It's the security line and then the customs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One or the other or both. Usually
have lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we both have Nexus cards, which really helps us with the customs lines.
Yeah. And on the way down, that didn't help too much, but on the way back, it definitely did. It probably saved us 45 minutes or an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. So, but yeah, the actual traveling it just feels like
once we were on the plane, it was
everything feels exactly the same, except you have to get the test and you have to wear a mask, but everything else is exactly the same.
And then you have they hand you the little wipe when you get on the plane so that you can wipe down your little seat. And we had 3 seats. Oh my gosh, Carrie. We had 3 seats. My sister was at the window, you were in the middle, and I was in the aisle. And, you know, it's one of those, we were tired, whatever. And we're both just watching movie. I don't know what I was watching. And I look over and Carrie's watching, shockingly, of course, The Karate Kid on the way down. So the movie is perfectly timed.
It is. It's a perfect movie to watch from Toronto to Florida.
Right. So you start the movie when we get in the air and it's wrapping up right when we're landing.
Yeah.
But right before we land, I look over and I see you're at the part where he's going to do that weird, the big kick at the end. If you haven't watched The Karate Kid, you should.
It's the best.
Oh my gosh. And Carrie starts like singing the music.
Listen, and like this is completely intentional. Like I did this 100% to make you laugh like crazy.
Did you make me laugh? Carrie, I could not, it was a laugh where so Carrie starts da 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 whatever the thing is.
And you know how
at the top of her lungs. People are looking. I start laughing. And I can't even catch my breath. My sister's looking like, what on earth is going on with you two? Everybody in the vicinity is looking at
That's right. Yeah, it's not the whole plane. Like, it's a loud plane where you can barely hear 3 rows ahead of you. Everybody around us.
So it's just the people in the bubble around us. I'm crying. My mask is wet. She's got her arms in the air. And then she starts yelling, she's going to pee her pants. Because I can't stop laughing. Oh my gosh. So it was the funniest landing we've ever had on a plane.
It was the best.
It was. Yeah, it was exactly the feel good smiles we needed for landing in Orlando. And then when we landed in Orlando, we met our friend Ashley. So one of the lovely ladies that follows us online, and she was getting on the plane that we got off.
Yeah.
So we got to meet her in the basically in the terminal. That was pretty cool. So we got to see her and meet her in person. So that was
and
fun.
she had been at Disney World for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, she'd been there a long time.
We were following her online and seeing all the shenanigans she was up to and all the things she was doing. And then,
yeah. And then here we were. So that was fun. She kind of passed the torch over to us.
Yeah.
And then how did you feel in the parks, Carrie? So our friend picked us up at the airport. So we didn't have, our friend Susan picked us up at the airport. We didn't have Magical Express. Mm-hmm. So how did you feel when we got to the parks? Like Magic Kingdom was our first park.
Yeah, I think definitely as the week went on, I got more comfortable. I didn't, like, again, I'm not worried, like, feeling, oh my goodness, am I going to get COVID from these people? I think it's because, like, we've been in our houses and at work where there's 5 people in instead of 50 people in, that all of a sudden you're in, like, I don't even know that being in the stores felt weird because, like, everyone's masked inside at Walt Disney World. It's like being out on the streets. Like, that was the weirdest part for me. Like, being in the parks outside with so many people when I haven't been that close to people in a long time.
In like a year and a half. Yeah.
So that, like, inside it felt kind of normal because I'm like, okay, this is just like being at the grocery store. We're all wearing masks. So there's a lot more people in the stores than I'm used to. but outside that was the weirdest. Is like, I don't know why, but it just felt very
all
weird.
All the people because it was big crowds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just felt weird without masks and very bizarre. But I think as, like, yeah, I don't know. As the week went on, like, I more, like, turned to the aspect, like, the view of seeing people, like, people were just enjoying themselves. Like, when you really stopped to look and, like, got over the, oh my goodness, I'm outside and I don't have a mask on and there's a bunch of people around me, is that people really are just there enjoying the Magic Kingdom as they always have. Like, families frolicking and laughing and kids and people just doing what they usually do, like taking selfies, showing each other pictures, laughing. Like, when you really stop and you can put your anxiety aside and you really take a good look around, like, it really is just like the way that it used to be. Like, everyone's just enjoying themselves at the theme parks.
Yeah. And then we kept our mask on when we were uncomfortable. So even outside, when we were uncomfortable or it was a really big crowd, we kept our mask on and that was fine. And for the most part, from what I saw, and I was actually really looking for it this time because I'd heard others say that maybe people weren't following the rules and stuff like that. I would say for the most part, everybody was following the rules. Like, they had their masks on inside. Yeah, there were a couple times where they had to have cast members remind people, but they didn't put up a fuss. They just, for the most part, it was because they forgot.
Yeah, I think especially in situations where we're going in and out of places, if it wouldn't have been so hot, I probably would have just kept my mask on most of the time because that's the pain. Remembering to put the mask in and on and off when you're at Epcot and you're going around the World Showcase and like every however many steps away, you're in the next 2 minutes you're gonna go in somewhere else, right? So in those situations, especially when we were out at night, I often would just keep it on because I'm just gonna have to put it on and off and on and off anyways. But it was way too hot to even wear it outside for a couple of minutes in between the stores because I think that just overheats you even more, right? When you go into a store and you're expecting air conditioning to hit you, but you're breathing in a hot mask, doesn't help. So,
and that is exactly what happened to me at Epcot. We walked in, I think it was the Italy pavilion we were in, and we're walking around, we're pointing out stuff. I think like we were getting ready to buy something. And nobody said a word. And then I looked at my hand and my mask was in my hand. I'd been in this store for like 5 minutes with no mask. I just forgot to put it back on. So I think you're right. That's the hard part is remembering to put it back on when you've taken it off. And that was, so you felt pretty good, about it all. I mean, we do need to, talk about the testing for the way home. So when I was there in August, I did the one at the airport. So it was $175. You got your results in less than an hour. And this time we tried a new free service, Beeper MD, but we also had a backup plan booked at the airport.
Just in case. Well, we had heard that like Beeper MD might run late or whatever. We had read some reviews, so we wanted to have a backup plan. Not that we didn't trust that they would be there, but we thought we better just in case.
Just in case. So and because it is so anxiety inducing, right? This whole testing, blah, blah, blah. So we had booked between 3 and 5. We were at the beach club by this point. Mm-hmm. And we had booked the arrival for Beeper MD between 3 and 5.
Yeah, they come to us.
Right. And it's free if you have more than 2 people. So this is it's basically paid for by the government, the U.S. government, who just want people to get tested. So we booked between 3 and 5. The day before, because of all the reviews, I called to confirm our appointment. And the woman said, yes, you're booked between 3 and 5, but you'll get the real time once they finish the schedule. And then I guess it was probably a couple hours after that we got the confirmation she was going to arrive at 3:50. Like, they actually gave us a very specific time, not just a window. Mm-hmm. And then I guess that day she called us probably around 3 o'clock.
She might have even called a little bit earlier in the day just to say she was that she was coming, and then she called again later to say she was running a little bit late, but not very late. Like, she was there by 4:30.
Yeah, like she said she was running a bit late, and she was reading to us what her GPS was saying was the distance she had to drive to get to us, and she called twice, like, to give us that ETA of when she was coming, and then she finally arrived at like 4:30. So 40 minutes late.
Yeah, we met her in the lobby. What do you call that?
It's like the roundabout. What do they call it? The port coach. I can't say it, but it's the doohickey. It's like the out where you pull up in the car outside.
Yeah, so instead of her like having to park and come in with all of her gear and find us and meet her in the lobby and do it, we said we'll meet you outside. So she pretty much pulled up, popped her hatchback, and we did the testing.
Outside.
We did the testing outside there. So
we did get some looks. We did get some looks from people walking by. They're like, what are these people doing? But whatever. So she pretty much like verifies all of our information as per what we put into the application to do it. And then she has to call into the I don't know, the clinic or whatever. The clinical nurse.
The clinical nurse, and we had to verify, like, the nurse kind of verifies our information again, because it's really neat.
Video.
Like this, over video, because she, like, the nurse, I'm assuming the lady that came to give us the swab's probably a nurse, and then the clinical nurse, he verified our information, and like he has he can see all of our stuff because it's all connected through the application and the app. So like verifying who's who and just asking us if we have any symptoms or if we feel okay, like just checking in with us and verifying it. And then once he verifies it, then she knows she's good to, like, you know, seal everything all up and then it's ready to go to the lab or whatever. Like she said, we had to go, the verification process is to like finalize it all so that it's approved so that it can go to the lab or whatever. So that's kind of neat too. Like I didn't expect that we would do a
I didn't either.
Zoom call with a nurse.
Yeah. And he asked us, like, do you have any questions about the process? Like and he went through it with each one of the 4 of us. Yeah. Like there were 4 of us doing it, and they did it with each of us individually over Zoom in the parking lot, like in the parking roundabout, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So it was easy.
And the swab was easy. Like it doesn't hurt, you know, no big deal. And then we had our result. Like she was very lovely. You know, even though it's a free service, it's nice to tip, you know, because these guys are working really hard. And we had our results within 24 hours.
Yeah, 24 hours almost exactly. And it's 24 to 36 hours. That's why we have the buffer backup plan, because if it was going to be much longer. If they were late and then the results came at exactly 36 hours, we might not feel comfortable. Right. If we were waiting on them still.
Yeah. So we had our backup at the airport, and it all worked out. It actually worked perfectly for us. If I hadn't heard any of the other reviews, I would have been like, this is genius. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it worked out really well for us. Of course, we all came back negative, but there is that anxiety about taking the test before you do, even though you've been following the rules, vaccinated, washing your hands, blah, blah, blah. you still have that, oh my God, what if I test positive? But we all came back negative. And then there was a collective sigh of relief, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I think so. Because then we just don't have to worry about that part anymore.
Right. So, given all of that, Carrie, the anxiety about the tests are really the big deal for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And now that you've done the tests, would you travel again?
For sure, but I think that anxiety's still there until the tests are...
Until the tests are done.
It's, yeah, like, and as silly as it seems...
It's not silly.
It's yeah, because now I know that the travel part's easy. Like, there's nothing that there's any... It's not like I'm going to get to the airport and they're going to be like... There's going to be like, you know, a siren. You traveled 1,000 times before. Guess what? It's not like that anymore. Like, everything's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
you have to go through an obstacle course now. Backwards, blindfolded. So, yeah, now that I know that everything else is exactly the same. Because it's like the what ifs, like you're always like, are they going to ask more questions? Or are they going to be, you know, are they going to challenge things or question things or, you know, whatever. Like, it's silly.
You just don't know.
It's silly as it sounds, like those things might you wonder about those things, but I think certain types of personalities, you can't, like, that's just the weird things that I worry about, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, knowing that it's exactly the same process, and then just a nice WestJet or Air Canada. Well, I think Air Canada, you can actually upload all of your stuff on the app. So then,
yes,
like when you check in, you upload all of your stuff so that it's verified and you're good to go. And with WestJet, like I said, a lovely WestJet staff member, you know, asks to see your stuff, puts a sticker on your passport, and then everything, or a check mark on your boarding pass.
Yeah.
And a check mark.
I know. It was like, this is
like everybody's got a pen.
High security.
Yeah, a blue pen check mark on your boarding pass. Like, other than that, like, everything's exactly the same, then yeah, for sure.
Yes. The only other thing that was a big issue for us that isn't the same as before is the customs on the way home. So, again, we arrived and the plane was sitting. We couldn't get off the plane because of customs. Customs was so backed up that they kept us on the plane. They only let people off at first who had connecting flights. So if you had a connecting flight, they let those passengers off first. And then I think we waited like 15, 20 minutes and they started emptying the plane 50 people at a time.
Well,
Same thing they did.
Yeah. I think they do that because of, like, really, we have Nexus, and we never, ever have to go through that customs lines when we come home. Like, that, pretty much, unless you come into Toronto at a very slow time or a wonky late time, or it even depends, because flights come in at all different times from all around the world. Right. That custom line's always like that. Oh, like,
I guess I've just never really paid attention to it.
But that's the thing. They're holding the plane and letting people off gradually, and looking at all the planes and figuring out how the heck they're going to manage it instead of dumping whatever 20 planes all at the same time. Like, they're just managing that, I'm sure, for COVID reasons. But I think regularly they just let everybody off the plane, and that room is
fend for yourself.
That room is jam packed that you have to go through. Like, that's the thing. Like, when you get off, like, Terminal 1 in Toronto is ginormous. So you walk this. No, I'm not going to say about how fantastic it is compared to the Terminal 3. But when you get off at Terminal 1, it's huge. Like, you walk. Like, it's like a 10-mile
walk to get off the plane. Yeah.
And it looks all like, you know, you're walking and there's the people that go off the plane with you and you're just moseying along. Some people are walking quickly, dragging bags. People have kids, whatever. Everyone's going at their own little pace. And so you go on this big, long walk. And then when you pretty much come down some escalators at the very end into the customs, and it's like a sea of 1 million people. And it's like that usually. So imagine, you know, with COVID, they don't want to have, there still looks like there's 1 million people in there, but if they're holding planes back and holding planes from unloading, then they're obviously trying to make it a little bit better. But before COVID, when we were flying out, it was on the opposite end. Like, how many times, think about before COVID, the last 4 or 5 times you flew, like, we were always leaving late because people were going through customs. It was taking so long. Yeah. That they were holding the planes back because they couldn't fly the planes with half the people because they knew half the people were still in line. So they held off. So it's pretty much, you know, instead of before, and I think that might have been because of, like, I don't like if there was union stuff going on or whatever before COVID for a number of months, but it's just kind of on the opposite side now that we have to wait on the plane to get off the plane, where before we were waiting to leave because the plane was empty and they're like, yeah, everybody's still in the customs line, so we're going to wait another half an hour, 45 minutes or an hour to let everybody get through customs. So
yeah, that was really the only thing that was the big difference that I saw about the actual travel part. So given all of that, Carrie, you think you're comfortable. You're like, yeah, I'm good to travel, still with anxiety about the testing, obviously.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we would maybe try to mix it up and try some new testing sites or whatever. Like I would do Beeper MD again, but maybe we'll try something different. So you feel comfortable. So when will you travel again?
Well, we're going to Destination D next month, or this month, I suppose it is.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. I haven't packed yet. Waiting for that test result, then I'll start packing.
You have plenty of time to pack. So yeah, so we do have an event, Destination D, in Walt Disney World that we're going to. So that'll be we've got a few more podcast episodes before that, but we'll do a full review of this event. It sold out pretty quickly and we managed to get our tickets. We bought our tickets like 8 months ago.
Well, whenever, I don't know.
Whenever, it was a while ago because we weren't even sure if we'd get to go. So yeah, we bought our tickets a while ago, so we're pretty excited about that. We've already put in our bids for pins or whatever. We got a few pins. So this is where you buy the pins. You put in saying, I would like these pins, and then they randomly select who gets which ones.
Yeah, and they're Mickey's of Glendale pins. That's the thing. They're
right, like
the
they're pretty
Mickey's
special.
Glendale store, the Imagineering.
Yes, so there'll be lots of merch for that stuff. So so you will travel again.
Of course.
Excellent. Well, we've got so many travel adventures to discover. I think now that it's almost like you can't unring the bell. Now that we both know how to do it, we're going to be traveling all the time.
Yeah, I think, you said that before, and that is true. Like, aside from the testing stuff, it's like...
It's like a no-brainer. Like, we're back. We don't want to ever take it for granted again.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. Okay, Carrie. We've got a lot of stuff to cover about our trip. So the next episode, we are going to dive into our experiences with the 50th. We want to talk about the fireworks, all that we experienced with the 50th on our trip. But we didn't want to make this like a 2-hour episode. So
just to check in.
Yes. So we wanted to, but it's good. So now I think, it helps other people understand the anxiety that we've all felt about traveling and how you feel afterwards. So thank you for sharing it, Carrie. Yay. Okay. So you have some combined pixie dust for us this week.
Yes.
In relation to our trip. So I'm going to let you sort of kick this one off. It's our pixie
for both
dust.
Of us. Yes, our pixie.
Yes.
So our pixie dust is that this past trip we had a new travel companion with us, our friend Susan, and we had been planning this trip for like a year or more or whatever, forever, and we had a great time. And Susan is a whole lot of fun. Like, oh my goodness, like we thought we giggled. We giggle a lot and laugh a lot. And Susan was right there to keep giggling and laughing and keeping us smiling the whole time. So that's our pixie. So we have a new travel buddy.
Yeah. So it was so fun. And it's always fun to have someone new on your travels because you see things differently with them. And we got to do that. I mean, we've traveled. So there were 4 of us on the trip. My sister Becky, the 2 of us, and our friend Susan. We've traveled with Becky lots of times. Yeah.
And I've traveled with Susan a little bit. Like, we've crossed paths on Disney trips before. Yes. But we never had like a full trip, like our whole trip together. Where we planned this. Like I said, we've been planning it and talking about it for a long time, for like a year. So.
Yep. So
it was lots of fun.
Our pixie dust. Yay. All right. Well, Carrie, this has been a fantastic episode, and thank you for sharing all of your experiences.
You're welcome.
And your excitement about the Muppets.
Yeah.
So, that's, it's a good reminder to everybody. If you have any Muppet friends or any Muppet connections, this is how you make Carrie happy. Put them in touch with us.
Yes, please. Although, whatever. This was awesome. I'm good.
You're like set now. You're
I'm
like,
okay.
yeah. My degrees of separation. I'm right in there. Okay, until next week, Carrie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player so you'll get a new episode every week. And find us on social media too. We'd love to hear from you.
Till next time, remember, you are never too old to be young. Chase your dreams and design your own happily ever after.